Wait!
So a huge debate has popped up on X for three reasons. One, because it's asserted that this pedestrian walked out in front of this vehicle deliberately and shouldn't have done so. Now, I agree they shouldn't have done so off the bat. Let's get that out of the way. Secondly, as to the priority of the vehicles, who has priority in this situation, the van or the pedestrian? And thirdly, because of this post here, whereby Vanguard Transfers appear to give an unequivocal offer to cover all the legal support necessary if, as they say here, you deliberately walk out in front of one of their vehicles and are run over. They say they will provide their driver with all the legal support they need to resist the claim and file a counterclaim against them. Now, aside from the fact that they're not likely to be authorised to conduct litigation on behalf of their drivers, that aside, which, by the way, might amount to an offence in itself, that aside, it appears to be an unequivocal offer to cover all of the legal costs for each of their drivers, something that they might want to rescind after watching this video. But nonetheless, that's what they say. And of course, that was in response to a Phone Kills post, which is credited for this video, which quite rightly references Highway Code 170, 180 and Rule H2, and says drivers not only ignore them, but some like this on purpose speed up into pedestrians. Not so certain that he sped up into the pedestrian, but he certainly didn't stop and showed no sign of stopping or even slowing down, which might prove fatal to their case should Vanguard Transfers ever follow up on their offer to cover all of the legal support if their driver were in such a situation. So let's take a look at the law on this, and this will be my response to this debate that's going on X. First of all, let's look at the rules. Very straightforward. I'm only going to talk about Rule H2 here because it's the relatively new re-emboldening of the hierarchy on the roads, which was always really in place, but just to codify it, reduce to writing, make it clear that this is the priority. Rule H2 provided for drivers, motorcyclists, horse-drawn carriages, and cyclists. Importantly for cyclists, because that will prove important for my example that I use in this video a bit later on. So all drivers, including cyclists. At a junction, you should give way to pedestrians crossing or waiting to cross a road into which or from which you are turning. So, as I showed in this video, this van driver was quite clearly, if we wind back, quite clearly turning into this road, along with these, the one in front. Now, I'm not sure that the two vans have anything to do with each other. Probably not, but possibly they do. It makes no difference whatsoever, just in case anyone was thinking that. But both of which were turning into this road and across which this pedestrian was walking. Now, at the very least, this is the earliest opportunity because the pedestrian is now off the pavement, as you can see there, off the pavement and in the road. At the very, very least, this van driver should have seen that this pedestrian is walking into the road and crossing this side road here. Whether they are deliberately walking in front of the van or not is frankly irrelevant to the fact that they're crossing the road. The van driver is far enough away that they could have and should have stopped according to the rules in the highway code just here. Now, skipping forward a little bit, the van driver, you can see, is not even looking towards the pedestrian here and is only at this point looking at the pedestrian. Could have slammed on the brakes at that point, even if he hadn't seen him beforehand, and should have done, but doesn't. And carries on, forces his way through, and through like that. Now, as I say, aside from the fact that the pedestrian may have been deliberately being provocative by walking in front of the vehicle because the pedestrian does have a priority. It's not a right of way, as many people often confuse this. No one has a right of way, an absolute right of way in the highway code. What the highway code provides is a set of rules, most of which are you should or should not do something, some of which are you must or must not do something. For example, you must give way to pedestrians on a zebra crossing. So had this been a zebra crossing, you must give way. And so there is a law definitively that you are breaking by doing that. Where the highway code comes into play, if this pedestrian were to get injured, is this would be played out in court against the backdrop of the highway code, specifically Rule H2, which was specifically brought in to re-embolden this hierarchy on the road. And this would go, in my view, against the van driver. Now, if there's any doubt in that, we have real cases to look to. So, for example, You might recall a case which actually happened in, I think, around 2015. Yes, July 2015. There was a collision during rush hour between a cyclist and a pedestrian. That's why I said earlier the cyclist bit was useful to remember, because this applies to cyclists just as it does to van drivers. Obviously, with a van driver, bigger, heavier, more dangerous, this would be even more prevalent a case against the van driver as it would against the cyclist. So let's take a look at what happened. I will credit the articles in the description below to comply with my copyright obligations. This was reported a cyclist who knocked over a woman who was looking at her mobile phone while crossing a road was then threatened with financial ruin for legal costs as he settled the case. So essentially what happened is she brought a claim against him for the injuries. They were both knocked unconscious. The judge ruled that they were equally to blame for the accident at a busy road junction, because obviously she wasn't paying attention, but the cyclist had run into her. Now, what did the judge have to say about this? Well, the judge said, cyclists, and I quote here, cyclists must be prepared. So this would apply to van drivers as well. Cyclists must be prepared at all times for people to behave in unexpected ways. In this case, with the cyclist and the lady, the unexpected ways the judge was referring to was she was walking along, as some people refer to as a phone zombie. No disrespect to the lady, but that's just the phrase people use because they are unaware of the situation around them, looking at their phone. Now, she was equally to blame, according to these reports, because she was not paying attention to the road around her. However, the judge said cyclists must be prepared at all times for people to behave in unexpected ways. He said Mr. Hazeldine did fall below the level expected of a reasonably competent cyclist in that he did proceed when the road was not absolutely clear. Well, hello. Let's look at this video here. Winding back to this point here. The pedestrian is in the road. Now, the pedestrian, if we apply exactly the same analogy here, the pedestrian might be acting in unexpected ways because as road users, which includes pedestrians, we are all obliged to take account of the road around us, take account for our own safety, stop if necessary, give way if necessary, and try to make things as safe as possible for everybody, including yourself and other people. So this pedestrian, as a user of the road, still has a duty of care to the van driver to the extent that is possible and should have stopped, in my view. Hence my response on the X thread that the pedestrian should have stopped. And many people are right in saying that he should. However, my comment was that it would be unwise for Vanguard Transfers to unequivocally offer to cover the legal costs of anybody that deliberately walks out in front of the van, such as this one here. So applying this comment from the judge here, the cyclist should be prepared at all times. Replace that with van driver. The van driver must be prepared at all times for people to behave in unexpected ways. So to put that specifically, the van driver must be prepared for someone to act in an unexpected way, such as deliberately walking in front of the van, as in this situation here. And in doing so, and in carrying on, as the driver did here, carried on regardless, the judge said in this case, again applying to the van driver would have been driving in a level below the expected of a reasonably competent driver, in that he did proceed when the road was not absolutely clear. Now, just to emphasize the point once more, if we wind back again, the van driver had, in my view, from the obscured view here to at this moment here when the cyclist first became visible, we've got playing from 8 seconds, 9 seconds, wait. 11. So 3 or 4 seconds to this point here, and the van driver continues regardless. So why is that so significant? It doesn't end there. That's not the end of this video. It's not the end of the analysis. The problem was that if we go back to this article here, not only was she awarded £4,300 in compensation, but the legal costs that they claimed against him, against this cyclist, were £112,000, which would obviously have, according to this story, left him facing bankruptcy since he was uninsured as a cyclist. Making the case for being insured as a cyclist. As a tangent, check whether your home insurance covers you for public liability and while you're out cycling and things like that. If it doesn't, check that it's one that you could add on or move to an insurer that could cover it. The claim prompted supporters to set up a GoFundMe appeal that raised more than £59,000 from 4,000 people. And then he tweeted these numbers here. The GoFundMe raised £59,000. The fees from GoFundMe were £2,700. The damages that were awarded were £4,300. The interest on those damages and their costs, which were settled, as I understand it, at £30,000, and his costs of £25,000 left him in a deficit of $2,900. There are other posts within this thread, of course, but you can find that over on X as well. So there it is. I hope that is clear in why that if you're the pedestrian, you shouldn't walk out in front of the vehicle. And if you're the van driver, you certainly shouldn't carry on regardless. And if you're a company that runs such vehicles, as I reiterate from my X post, think it unwise to unequivocally cover all of the legal costs, to resist a claim and file a counterclaim against their drivers. Unless, of course, they have insurance that does that, and the insurance is happy to do that. But I doubt very much that the insurer would be happy to do it on an unequivocal basis, as is shown in this post. I mean this video with all good intentions towards Vanguard drivers and everybody else involved. But nonetheless, I hope it's useful. Please do subscribe for more. And as always, thank you for watching and happy Friday.